I listen to a lot of Wayne Dyer, a lot of Taoism, a lot of what Bruce Lee say, you have to flow like water. I listen to a lot of that type of stuff, and things just naturally worked for me. They started to flow more when I allowed it to do what it's going to do. When you have to figure out a strategy to navigate a relationship with a partner, it's a shame, right? But it's also a shame the way that insecure attachment styles are formed to begin with. The canned advice of just walk away isn't always applicable when you're married to someone who's an avoidant, or when you have children with them, or even when the avoidant person is your mother, your brother, or your friend. So in today's video, we're going to take a deeper dive into avoidant attachment styles, and by the end of this video, hopefully, you'll have a deeper understanding of these 4 things. Why avoidants behave the way that they do, the most common mistakes people make while you're with an avoidant, practical strategies to keep your relationship strong, and how to know if an avoidant partner is capable of healthy love. But before I get into the content, if this is your first time visiting my channel, my name is Coach Court, and I've been helping people navigate relationships for over the past 18 years. If you want my help personally, the quickest way to get into contact with me is through my website at www.fruitfulseeds with the Z at the end.com. First, I want to apologize to everyone for my voice. I'm just getting over the flu, but this video, I had a lot of time to do some research on it and actually dive deep into my database of clients I've worked with and people that I know have come out in the right end of being in a relationship with someone with an avoidant attachment style. Before I get into the strategies though, I want to help you understand the mindset of a dismissive avoidant, because I think that it's important to talk about why avoidants behave the way that they do. If you're someone that's just getting to my channel and you don't know anything about attachment styles, you're wondering like, what is an avoidant attacher? I see that all the time in the comments. Dismissive avoidants are one of 4 attachment styles: secure, fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant, and anxious attachment. Attachment styles are styles that you've developed from early on in life. When you had your first interaction with your caregivers, these styles were formed, and it's often due to these 3 occurrences for a dismissive avoidant: growing up in an emotionally distant household, being expected to be highly independent as a child, having caregivers who were inconsistent or emotionally withdrawn. And I've personally seen these commonly in households where the parent or parents may have worked a lot, or the households where one or more parents may have been avoidant themselves. Cries and concerns were often dismissed, being told to either grow up, stop crying, or maybe even the children were forced to be the mature person in the household, meaning you had a parent that was maybe a little bit immature themselves, and you had to be the person to lead the way maturity-wise in that household. This is also one of the reasons why fearful avoidants also have that attachment style. One scenario that I have seen this is in a single parent home when the oldest child had to be overly caring for younger siblings and had to grow up quickly. Their needs were regularly put on the back burner, meaning they weren't seen as important, or their needs were dismissed altogether. Because of these early experiences, avoidants develop an adaptation of independence and often struggle with emotional intimacy. It becomes a foreign language to them, which means that when things feel too intense, their first instinct is to pull away. They avoid emotional dependence because they fear losing themselves in a relationship if they lean on people. And when they do, it's often followed up by them pulling away due to the vulnerability overdose, is what I like to call it. Let's say you and your partner had just had a great weekend together, full of connection and intimacy. Everything seems like you are building a stronger connection, but suddenly they start becoming distant, they stop texting as much, and may even seem distracted. This isn't because that they don't care, it's because deep intimacy triggers their fear of getting too close. In the past, whenever they've let themselves lean on someone, the person ended up letting them down. And this is in no way to give you guys hope to try to keep fighting for the dismissive avoidant. And I'm gonna get to that later on down the line. This is just to remind you guys their distancing behavior isn't about you, it's their way of self-regulating, and understanding this will help you not take things personally. So how do you know if your partner has an avoidant attachment style? I did a video a while back titled 5 Early Signs of Someone Who's Emotionally Unavailable. And it's got a little bit more of a twist on it, but it's not exclusively for dismissive avoidant individuals, but it is leaning pretty close. And I'll include that link in the description if you're interested. But here are some clear signs. They avoid labels or downplay the relationship. You might hear things like, I don't do relationships, or I like to take things extremely slow. Or they pull away after intimacy, after an emotional and physical connection. They may become more distant. We talked about that before. They rarely express vulnerability. They keep their emotions and struggles to themselves. And they value independence over closeness. They prefer solving problems alone rather than as a couple. This is the confusing one because a lot of individuals feel that if a person is leaning on them and they're being vulnerable, they have come to the other side. They're able to do this on a more regular basis, but that's not the case. Usually when it happens, it has to be dosed out and it can't be too overwhelming for them. Have you ever experienced this in your relationships? I want you guys to comment down below. And if you're someone that has experienced this, I want to talk about some of the biggest mistakes that people make. When people reach out to me, they're usually ashamed and scared that they have completely ruined the relationship because they made mistakes that I've warned them about in other videos. So what are the biggest mistakes that people make when they're dating or even married to a dismissive avoidant? The first one that I see is chasing them when they pull away. I've made many videos about chasing an avoidant, and those links will be in the description too. But if your avoidant partner starts to pull back, your instinct might be to chase, want to text them more, ask what's wrong because you feel like it's about you, or you demand reassurance that they're not abandoning you. But avoidants see this as pressure, and question them about what they're feeling is going to make them go into their shell even more. The second thing that I see is trying to force deep conversations too soon. Avoidants don't process emotions the way that anxiously attached people do. So if you constantly ask them, why don't you open up to me? This is something you need to stop immediately because they feel very overwhelmed when someone is questioning why they're not opening up, because they usually don't understand why they're not and why they don't. This is just a way of them surviving. The third thing that I see is taking their distance personally. It's easy to feel rejected when someone's pulling away, when someone's not messaging you back like they used to, when you feel like the vibe is just off. But when you take it personally, that's going to make you start to want to change your behaviors and do things more to, I talk about emotional tug of war. You know, when someone's just yanking on the rope, the other one's going to let the rope go and then game's over. So you want to naturally let it come back to the center ground, which it will, and we'll talk about that later. But the fourth mistake that I see people make is ignoring your own needs. The person dating the avoidant, they make it all about the avoidant and they neglect their own needs. And as a result, what's going to happen is you're going to start navigating the relationship with a fearful mindset. How do I know this? I've had many clients come to me after the fact. They've taken a deep dive learning about their ex or soon to be ex. One case in particular was a lady who was 48 from California, right? She was on the brink of divorce and finally realized that the way that she had been trying to reattract her husband was not only not working, but it was extremely unhealthy. And with my coaching, she was able to turn the relationship around. They didn't get divorced. And she did this by mainly listening more of what her avoidant husband was communicating. And nurturing her own friend circle kind of helped out a little bit too. Now, with all the background information about the dismissive avoidant attachment style, let's finally talk about how to cope with an avoidant partner. Here are 5 easily applicable tips that you can do today. And the first one is give them space when they need it. Instead of chasing, allow them to go back into their shell, retreat. They need to go in there and ponder and stew on what they're feeling, and then let them come to you in their own terms. Now, I learned this in counseling, actually, when I was in counseling myself, where the counselor told me I can't try to force things to happen. Things need to naturally flow. I listened to a lot of Wayne Dyer, a lot of Taoism, a lot of what Bruce Lee say, you have to flow like water. I listened to a lot of that type of stuff, and things just naturally worked for me. They started to flow more when I allowed it to do what it's going to do. That might be a little too woo-woo, but that's how I got to where I am today and how I healed my own attachment style. The second thing you want to do is communicate without pressure. Instead of saying, why don't you ever open up, or why do you shut down like this? Why are you like this? Say something like, no, I really value our connection and I love to understand a little bit more about you, but whenever you're ready, I'm here to talk. Number 3 is build a life outside of your relationship. I mean, you have to have your own hobbies. This is the advice I gave the lady who got her husband back. You have to have your own hobbies, your own friends, your own goals, because when you don't, you lean heavy on that relationship. And I think this is something Tony Robbins talked about, the will of, I think it might have been the will of life or something like that. where he cuts it up into pie chart and he puts different areas of your life in there, finances, relationship, career, hobbies. And when you put too much in your relationship pie chart, in the slice, it gets overwhelmed. And everything else, it naturally gets neglected. So when you put all this effort into your relationship, you neglect those other areas. But when you know that you have this happy centered life where you have it all spread out, you won't put so much into your relationship. And when you lose that slice of the pie, it won't be so devastating. Number 4 is recognize small efforts as love, because they move slowly. Avoidants move slowly like snails. So you have to be able to recognize when they're trying to make these small efforts. Checking in by making plans, being reliable, recognize that those are all things that they're really trying to do. They're trying to live for someone else outside of them. And the 5th and last one is set boundaries for your own needs. It's okay to want emotional connection. It's okay for you to want someone to show up for you, right? If your partner never meets you halfway, you have to decide if this is the right relationship for you, because that is the whole point of relationships. I heard a quote once that said, you go to the relationship to give. And there's another quote that said, I'll take care of me for you, and you take care of you for me. So how do you know if an avoidant is even capable of having a healthy relationship? How do you know that they're going to take care of them for you? Some avoidants learn this through secure relationships. And here's how you know if your avoidant partner is actually capable of the type of growth that you need in order to make this relationship healthy. One is they acknowledge their avoidant tendencies. That's first and foremost. It's something that I learned when I was working in recovery. The first step is acknowledging that you have something that needs to be changed. The second one is they make an effort to stay connected, which means you're not the only one that's texting. You're not the only one that's breaking no contact, texting the next day or the day after. You're not the only one that's saying goodnight. The third one is they respect your needs. Even if they struggle to meet them, at least they respect them, which means they're living for someone else outside of them. Fourth is they're willing to work on communication and emotional closeness. They may think about counseling or therapy or reading a book or listening to a podcast together. These are really good steps towards them meeting you in the middle and trying to make this relationship a healthy one. So when you see these signs, know that they're trying, know that they're trying to meet you in the middle, especially if you're married to them or there's someone that you're, like I talked about before, a family member or a friend. One of those relationships that's not all about the intimacy and romance, it's about just connection. Because when you're coping with an avoiding partner and you realize that this isn't about changing them, it's about understanding while honoring their own needs and your needs. If you're in this situation, remember that self-care is key, and you can't change anyone. They have to want to change on their own. So if you found this video of any value, please like, comment, and share. You can reach out to me on my other social media accounts. Instagram is I am Coach Court. TikTok is I.am.coachcourt. And Facebook is Coach Court. Thank you guys. And always remember, when you go be loved, you'll never have to find it. Namaste.